Amen. We all know, I think, the first verse of Psalm 27, "The Lord is my light and my salvation," and we have at times said it to ourselves, and perhaps not got very far into the psalm. Very much a psalm where David is looking back over things. It's possible he was actually hiding in a cave at this time. And his desire was that the Lord would be his light, or is his light. Now, light was very much needed in David's time. If you've been in the countryside where there isn't any light at all, it's incredibly pitch black. We had a holiday just after we were married. And not only we were from Manchester, completely pitch black in the wilds of Herefordshire, but there were also sheep who would go off like sort of little bombs from time to time, and sounded incredibly loud. And also his salvation. If you've been watching the two Fiennes cousins going up the Nile, you begin to realise the kind of terrain in which David lived. It was stony desert, and it was difficult to get round. And even today, there is no proper road. So they had to have the Bedouin actually helping them and showing them where to go and where the tracks would be. And it's easy to forget now, because we rely so much on our lights and on our modern gadgets to give us heat and to provide our way through the day, that for many people it hasn't been that way, and for many people it's still not. And David can say that he has found that the Lord has illumined his way. He's shown him not just physical light, but how to live. David is here surrounded by armed hosts, by enemies seeking to take over his kingdom. He also has experienced his son turning against him and raising an army against him. But he doesn't argue about it. He doesn't do "oh, poor me, why has this happened?" He doesn't get angry with God. He doesn't shout at God. He doesn't rail at God. He doesn't ask about why bad things happen. He knows they do. But he looks back instead at the experience of the Old Testament history, and he is able to thank God for what he's done and for what he has known to be good. He accepts what has been done. Many of us have experienced the fact that we went for a job and didn't get it. The church in Southsea that we were at seemed to be quite attractive to businessmen who wanted to succeed. We knew some of them were there whenever the business was in trouble. But there was one man who asked the church to pray very fervently that he would get a job with a particular company because it was so much better pay, so much better opportunities. He didn't get it, and he was devastated. But 12 months later, this national firm went completely bust, and everybody lost their jobs. So the Lord knew more than he did. And as he looks back, David can be confident of God's goodness and blessing. He has been his light and his salvation. And he's confident because he's based it on God's goodness, even in hard times, even when he's hiding. And he longs to dwell in God's house. You can try it, but it'll be locked tomorrow. Well, tomorrow morning it'll be full of toddlers waving tambourines and things. But the rest of the week it'll be locked, so you can't dwell in this one. And not unless you're a nun or a monk are you going to spend all day in God's house. But we can be aware of his presence at all times. We can turn to him and know that he's there. Jesus promised his followers, "I am with you always." And I read this week a quote by Spurgeon, who said, it's not that he has to catch up with you when you pray. He's already there. He's there with you. You just have to realise it. He's already walking there alongside you to listen, to help, and to be a companion. And then David can say, of whom shall I be afraid? We don't have, I hope, physical enemies. Nobody's out to get us. But we do have unseen enemies all around us. Germs and trends that are beyond our control, shortages and rising prices, calculations of things like pensions and savings that we can't understand. All these can become reasons to be anxious and even paranoid. And David trusts God and knows that he will hide me. Now, by that he means that God is in control and will lead him through it. But just occasionally it can be actual physical hiding. As a teenager, I lived just round the corner from the orthopaedic hospital in Birmingham. And there was a nurse who had come there to work who had been a German Jew, and her whole family had been arrested and wiped out. And twice when she was arrested, the first time they were put on a train and she just got off the train and walked away and nobody stopped her. She had, as it were, become invisible. And the second time she was in a queue of people and again she just walked out and nobody realised. And she was then hidden by a local pastor in the attic for a very long time. And while she was there, she read absolutely everything she could lay her hands on. And she picked up a Bible, and she knew the first part, and she really enjoyed that. And then she realised it had got a sequel at the end, and she hadn't realised that at all. And she wondered why nobody had told her that the Messiah had come, that the Messiah was there to save her. And so she became a Christian by reading the Word. And David is pointing to the fact that the antidote to panic is to take time with God and enjoy his presence. We can study, we can read, we can pray, but we can just sit in his presence. If you've got a great friend, you don't have to talk all the time. You can just walk together, or you can just sit together. Because you don't need to talk all the time if you're sure of the friendship. You just share the company and the knowledge of being there with each other. And still David is praising and giving and trusting, even though he is aware of dangers around him. And he knows that he needs to learn more of the way of God. Wait is the word that he uses, wait on God. Now, we're not used really to people waiting on us, but if you go to the poshest hotels, apparently people are there just to see if you might need something. Tony was in a very posh house, for which the Princess of Wales was paying. And the waiter came up and said, "Would you like more toast, sir?" And he said, "Yes, please." And he produced the toast straight away. You're supposed to tell what's going to happen and what's needed. And I remember seeing a very old television programme with Edward Woodward not in any kind of credited way, but he was a servant. And he was a hopeless servant because he was doing things and his eyes were everywhere. And he should have been concentrating on the thing in front of him, on just being a servant, just being there to serve. And the passage ends with this great promise: wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Now, I started writing this sermon many weeks ago when I had the car in for a service at Nissan. And I decided to wait for it, and they sat me in front of this television screen, which told you all about how wonderful the latest cars are, and all the things they can do for you. I mean, yes, I've got automatic windscreen wipers. I'm now having a breakdown today because I turn them off and they turn straight back on. I know it's terrible. Automatic lights. But now they can parallel park you. They can tell you if someone's going to overtake you. They can tell you how many miles you've got to go before you run out of petrol. They can't put the petrol in yet. And so about 25 features that you didn't think you needed, you can get. And every half hour, there was a strap line at the bottom of the screen, and it said, you should not rely on these driver convenient features. Features may not work in all conditions and circumstances. The good news is I've discovered that to my cost when I backed into a fence that wasn't a fence. Or the car didn't think it was. We have a saviour. We have a God who is totally reliable, totally dependable, and who will never forsake us or leave us. Amen.